It is Wednesday, February the 25th, 2026. And we are, well, the F1 paddock is currently baking in the Bahrain heat.
Oh, absolutely roasting out there.
Yeah, the desert heat is just shimmering off the tarmac right now. And, you know, if you're just sort of casually glancing at the headlines today, you might think it's just business as usual.
Right, just another preseason test.
Exactly. The cars are on the track, the timesheets are ticking over, engineers staring at data traces looking very serious. But, and this is a big bite, but if you look closer, if you actually pay attention to the tension in the paddock right now, you realize we aren't just starting a new season.
Not at all.
We are standing on the precipice of a complete reset, the dawn of a genuinely new era.
It really does feel completely different this year, doesn't it?
It does.
I mean, we've got the new 2026 regulations coming into force, the active aerodynamics, the totally revamped power units with that massive increase in electrical dependency.
Yeah, a 50-50 split now.
Exactly. It's arguably the biggest technical shakeup the sport has seen in over a decade. And usually when you have a regulation change of this magnitude, the teams, they lean on experience.
They want a safe pair of hands.
Spot on. They want a veteran in the cockpit who knows how to develop a car, someone who has seen it all and can give that vital feedback.
But, and this is why we are here today, one garage is doing the exact opposite.
They really are.
We are zooming right in on the Racing Bulls garage today, Red Bull's sister team. And they have decided to basically throw a teenager straight into the deep end of this technical chaos.
A literal teenager.
Yeah. We're talking about Arvid Lindblad. He is 18 years old.
Mad.
And he is about to become the youngest British driver in the entire history of Formula One, breaking a record held by absolute giants of the sport.
It is a massive, massive roll of the dice from the team. And frankly, it's a decision that has just split opinion right down the middle across the motorsport world.
Oh, completely.
On one side, you have the romantics, the people who look at him and see the next Max Verstappen.
Yeah, the generational talent argument.
Right. But then on the other side, you've got the pragmatists asking if it's, well, borderline irresponsible to put a kid who is barely legal to drive a Ford Fiesta on the M25
into a 2026 spec F1 car.
Exactly. A car which is physically brutal and mentally just exhausting to operate.
So that is our mission for today's deep dive. We aren't just going to read you his Wikipedia page.
No, that's boring.
We want to really understand the anatomy of this specific prodigy. How does a kid go from watching F1 on the sofa at age 4 to sitting on the grid at 18? Why him? Why now?
And to do that, we've got a brilliant stack of sources to work through today.
We really do.
We are pulling from an incredibly revealing, exclusive BBC Sport interview that Lindblad just gave, literally conducted on a beach in Bahrain, just minutes away from the circuit.
Which is such a weird juxtaposition, isn't it? The relaxed beach vibes versus the absolute pressure cooker of the paddock.
It really is. So that gives us the polished, sort of reflective perspective. But we are also cross-referencing that with the raw fan discourse.
The internet always has thoughts.
Oh, always. We're diving into a massive Reddit thread that has been dissecting his career, his training, leaked clips from his past, and just the general temperature of the F1 fan base heading into this 2026 season.
And we need to look at the wider implications, too. The Red Bull driver program is famously ruthless. Plus, we've got this preseason chatter about the pecking order whispers about Honda, some crisis talks around Aston Martin, all before the lights even go out in Australia next month.
There's a lot to unpack.
There is. So whether you were listening to this because you love the engineering and the technical side, or you're just here for the pure paddock drama.
And there is plenty of drama.
We've got you covered. Let's start with the headline fact. Arvid Lindblad, 18 years old, promoted to Racing Bulls. For the listener who maybe hasn't been obsessively refreshing the motorsport feeds during the winter break, how on earth did this happen so fast?
It's a blur, honestly. Usually the path to F1 is a slow burn.
Right. You do Formula 4, you do Formula 3, maybe 2 solid years in Formula 2 to learn the tires.
Exactly. But Lindblad seems to have just hit the fast-forward button on his entire career.
When did he actually get the call for the F1 seat?
He found out he got the seat at the Qatar Grand Prix late last year in 2025.
While he was still racing in F2.
Yeah, he was still competing in the junior category. But if you look at his trajectory, he has been fast-tracked at every single stage of his career by Helmut Marko.
Ah, Dr. Helmut Marko, the Red Bull advisor.
The very same.
The man who is essentially the grim reaper of junior racing drivers.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're good, he gives you the world. if you're just average.
He ends your career without a second thought. It's brutal.
It is.
But Marko doesn't fast-track these drivers just because he's impatient. He does it to test their psychological breaking point.
That's a really interesting way to frame it. A stress test.
That's exactly what it is. Promoting Lindblad to F1 at 18 isn't a reward for good behavior. It's a test to see if he sinks or swims.
Because they've done this before.
They have. We saw it with Max Verstappen when he came in at 17. We saw it with Sebastian Vettel. The logic in the Red Bull camp is that if you are a true generational talent, age is completely irrelevant.
Right. If you need 3 years in F2 to figure it out, you probably aren't going to be a world champion anyway.
In Marko's eyes, yes. If you've got it, you've got it.
So the very fact that he is here, at this age, is the ultimate endorsement from the toughest judge in the sport.
Absolutely.
But let's look at the bloke himself. Because on paper, if you just read the bio, he's a lad born and raised in Virginia Water, in Surrey.
Which is a very nice part of the world.
Very affluent. Close to London. It sounds like a pretty standard British racing driver origin story, doesn't it? Wealthy area, easy access to karting tracks. But the BBC interview goes out of its way to call his background a rare combination.
And it really is. It's a very distinct mix, which makes him entirely unique on the current grid.
Break that down for us.
Well, geographically and culturally, yes, he is British. He's one of 5 Brits on the grid this year, or 6, I suppose, if you count Alex Albon, who races under the Thai flag but grew up in London.
Right.
But Lindblad's heritage is deeply international. His father, Stefan, is Swedish, and his mother, Anita, is of Indian origin.
Which is massive. That makes Arvid the very first Briton of Indian heritage to race in Formula One.
That's a huge milestone.
It really is. I mean, we've had Indian drivers before, obviously, Narain Karthikeyan, Karun Chandhok, but a British Indian driver at this absolute elite level feels like a real shift in representation for motorsport in the UK.
It does, and what's fascinating in the interview is that Lindblad doesn't shy away from it at all. He embraces it. He speaks really warmly about growing up with this duality, or really a trinity of cultures.
Yeah, the Swedish, the British, and the Indian.
Exactly. He mentions the Swedish influence from his dad, his standard British upbringing in Surrey, but also the Indian rituals, the food, the prayer from his mom's side. He says he is very proud of that mix.
There was a moment in the interview, though, a bit of a disconnect he mentioned regarding language, which I found brilliantly honest.
Oh, about his language skill.
Yeah. He admits he is, quote, not the best at languages.
He was very candid about that. He speaks English, obviously, a little bit of Swedish. But he actually admitted he only knows a few words of Hindi.
And he didn't try to gloss over it.
No, he framed it as a genuine regret. He said he really wants to work on it as a sign of respect to that side of his heritage.
I think it shows a lot of maturity to admit that publicly. To say, you know, I feel a bit linguistically disconnected from a culture I proudly represent, and I want to fix it.
It shows self-awareness, which is a rare trait in teenagers, let alone teenage racing drivers.
True. But here's where I want to push a bit deeper into his background. Because we constantly hear about the rich kid syndrome in modern F1.
You can't avoid it. Motorsport is astronomically expensive.
Exactly. And Virginia Water is not exactly a council estate. It's very easy to look at a kid like Arvid, with the Red Bull gear and the polished media training, and assume everything was just handed to him on a silver platter.
But then you read the family history.
The stuff about his grandparents, I have to admit, that completely stopped me in my tracks.
It's the aha moment of his entire profile, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you just look at his postcode, you see privilege. But if you look at his ancestry, you see sheer survival.
The BBC piece goes into detail about the Partition of India in 1947.
Which is a heavy topic for a sports interview.
Very heavy. For listeners who might need a quick refresher on the history, the partition was a cataclysmic historical event. The division of British India into the independent states of India and Pakistan.
It displaced roughly 15 million people.
It was violent. It was incredibly chaotic. And Lindblad's maternal grandparents, his nanny and his grandfather, were right in the middle of it.
They were just 5 years old at the time. They lived in the part of Punjab that became Pakistan. And from what Arvid says, they came from relatively well-off backgrounds. But overnight, the lines were drawn, and they lost absolutely everything.
Their homes, their status, their stability, just gone.
They had to flee across the newly drawn borders.
It's hard to fathom. Just imagine being 5 years old. That is the exact same age Arvid was when he first started driving go-karts. And at that age, his grandparents are fleeing across a border, losing everything they've ever known.
And they had to rebuild their lives from absolutely scratch. The interview notes that they eventually moved to the UK in their late 20s or early 30s as doctors.
Wow.
But the trauma of that kind of restart, that deep-seated feeling that you have to work twice or three times as hard just to get back to a baseline of stability, that never really leaves a family's DNA.
No, it gets passed down.
Exactly. Arvid explicitly mentions that his grandmother didn't retire from medicine until she was 82.
82 years old. That is just intense.
It is the ultimate immigrant work ethic. And Arvid is very clear that this wasn't just some distant story he heard once at Christmas.
He feels it.
He says, and I quote, "I'm very lucky to come from a family where hard work, humility, and all of those values are very important." He directly connects his own discipline as an athlete to their survival.
And it's not just the Indian side of his family either, is it? The Swedish side has a very similar sort of self-made grit to it.
It does. His father, Stefan, came from a very small village in Sweden. Arvid mentions that his grandparents there sometimes genuinely struggled to put 3 meals on the table.
So it wasn't easy there either.
Not at all. Stefan started working when he was just 11 years old, doing paper rounds, odd jobs, just to have a bit of pocket money. And he eventually funded his own way through university.
So when we see Arvid Lindblad walking through the paddock today wearing that crisp Red Bull kit, looking like the ultimate modern privileged athlete, underneath all that, is he actually running on a completely different kind of fuel?
I think that is the key differentiator for him.
Because a lot of his rivals grew up with dads who were ex-F1 drivers, living in Monaco since the day they were born. Arvid is only one generation removed from real visceral struggle.
That's it. We talk about drivers having hunger, but usually in motorsport, that's metaphorical. It means they want to win trophies.
Right.
But for Lindblad's family, the hunger was literal. I think that creates a totally different kind of internal pressure. Not the pressure to be famous, but the pressure to honor the sacrifice of the people who put you there.
You don't slack off in the gym when you know your grandma was doing 14-hour hospital shifts in her 80s.
Exactly. He isn't just driving for himself. He feels like the combination of two separate families clawing their way up the ladder. That completely prevents complacency.
It really challenges that lazy narrative that you have to be soft if you come from money. He clearly has the financial backing now. You don't get through karting without it. But the software running in his brain is deeply survivalist.
Survivalist software, I like that. And it totally reframes how we should view him as a competitor.
Which brings us perfectly to how that software actually translates to the hardware, the car itself. Because usually in these stories, it's the dad who is obsessed with racing and pushes the kid into a kart.
But in this case, the petrolhead gene actually skipped a generation?
It was the Swedish grandfather, right?
Yeah. Arvid says his granddad would watch anything with wheels and an engine, and that pure obsession passed to his dad, Stefan, and then straight down to Arvid.
And they started him incredibly early. He got a motocross bike at age 3.
Which is terrifying, and it didn't last long.
No, his mom, Anita, put a very hard stop to that.
Can you blame her? Putting a toddler on a dirt bike? I think she made the entirely correct call there.
Definitely a good parenting moment. So they pivoted to 4 wheels, karting at age 5. But there's a very specific moment he talks about, let's call it the sofa moment, that happened even earlier.
Oh, when he was watching TV.
Yeah. He was 4 years old, sitting on the sofa watching a Formula One race with his dad. And he just turned to him and asked, "Is it possible to be there? Could I?"
And he claims that from that very moment, he believed he could.
At 4.
He calls it maybe false hope looking back as an adult, but that innate belief is so essential.
You have to be slightly delusional to be a racing driver.
You have to be massively delusional to genuinely believe you can be one of the 20 people in the entire world to make it to the F1 grid. If you look at the raw statistics, it is impossible. You have to completely ignore the odds.
Speaking of ignoring the odds and being slightly delusional, or, well, let's just call it supreme confidence, we absolutely have to talk about the viral clip.
The Reddit thread was completely obsessed with this.
Rightly so. It is the stuff of absolute legend.
The Lando Norris interaction.
Yes. Okay, so let's set the scene for the listener. The year is 2021. Arvid Lindblad is 13, maybe 14 years old. He's just a kid in karting. Lando Norris is already a massive, established star driving for McLaren. Arvid walks right up to him, there are cameras rolling, and he says what?
He looks him in the eye and says, "I want you to remember me. I'll see you in 5 years."
I'll see you in 5 years. And he clearly didn't mean, I'll see you getting an autograph in the grandstands. He meant, I'll see you on the starting grid.
And the craziest part, He nailed the timeline.
To the exact year.
It is exactly 5 years later, and they are about to race against each other in Bahrain.
Is that arrogance? Because I can imagine some older fans hearing that and thinking, who does this cocky little kid think he is?
I don't think it's arrogance in the traditional malicious sense. I think it is a massive cultural shift. We are witnessing the rise of the Zoomer driver.
Explain that.
You have to remember how this specific generation, Lindblad, Kimi Antonelli, the guys coming up right now, how they consume the sport. They didn't grow up worshiping these F1 drivers as distant, unreachable gods on a television set.
No, they grew up watching them stream on Twitch.
Exactly. They raced against them in iRacing lobbies in their bedrooms during the pandemic.
That is such a crucial point. The pedestal has been completely lowered.
It's been demolished. To Arvid, Lando Norris isn't some mythical creature. He's just a bloke with a slightly better lap time in the simulator.
The fear factor is totally gone.
Completely. They view the current F1 grid as peers that they just haven't had the chance to beat yet, rather than heroes they are lucky to share the same tarmac with.
The fans on Reddit were having an absolute field day with this attitude. They were calling him a broccoli hair zoomer.
Which is brilliant. For anyone perhaps over the age of 30 listening, that refers to that very specific haircut. The tight perm on top with the shaved sides. That is just ubiquitous with Gen Z boys right now.
One of the top comments was literally, "Move over, Norris. There's a new broccoli hair zoomer on the grid." And the comparisons to the internet streamer Stable Ronaldo were flying everywhere.
It's funny, but it actually really humanizes him to the audience.
It does.
F1 drivers used to be these mysterious, inaccessible, international playboys, James Hunt types. Now, they're just meme-literate kids. It completely changed the dynamic with the fan base. The younger fans feel like they actually know him because he looks and talks exactly like the kids in their Call of Duty lobbies.
So we have the relatable personality, we
Yeah.
have the incredible heritage, we have the unshakable confidence.
All the ingredients.
But now we have to talk about the machinery. Because confidence is fantastic, but if your car handles like a tractor, you aren't going anywhere.
The great equalizer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It is 2026. The new regulations have arrived. What does this actually mean for a rookie stepping in right now?
It is a double-edged sword, but honestly, it might be the perfect time. The 2026 regulations mean these cars are fundamentally different beasts from what raced in 2025.
The active aerodynamics, right?
Yes, the wings are constantly opening and closing on the straights and in the corners to reduce drag. And the engine is now a 50-50 split between internal combustion and pure electrical power.
So the driver has to do significantly more work inside the cockpit.
Immense amounts of work. They are constantly adjusting deployment settings on the steering wheel while cornering at 5 Gs. But here is the fascinating angle for a rookie like Lindblad.
Go on.
The veterans, Hamilton, Verstappen, Leclerc, they have years and years of deeply ingrained muscle memory built up on how the old cars behaved.
They expect the car to react a certain way when they brake.
Exactly. They have habits. Some of those habits are now wrong for these new cars. Lindblad. He is a complete blank slate.
He doesn't have to unlearn anything.
Precisely. He can adapt to the new handling characteristics without fighting his own instincts.
That is a brilliant take. So while Lewis Hamilton might be on the radio complaining that the front end doesn't bite like the old Mercedes did, Arvid is just sitting there thinking, well, I guess this is just what an F1 car feels like.
Ignorance can be absolute bliss in a technical revolution. And crucially, he has had extra time to prepare. The sources point out that there are 3 preseason tests this year.
Which is highly unusual. Normally, the FIA just gives them one single 3-day test and then straight into the first race weekend.
It's an incredible luxury for a rookie. The FIA allowed the extra testing purely because of the scope of the new regulations. Lindblad says in the interview that he is utilizing these tests to the absolute maximum to get up to speed.
And his boss seems to agree. Alan Permain, the Racing Bulls team principal, has been full of praise.
Now that is significant. Alan Permain is a proper old-school F1 guy.
He worked with Schumacher at Benetton. He worked with Alonso at Renault.
He is not a man who hands out compliments just for the sake of PR. He's tough.
He is a tough nut to crack. But Permain said Lindblad's speed is, quote, a given. He said, we know he's got the speed. But the thing he really highlighted was Arvid's inquisitiveness.
That's the magic word.
Permain said his debriefs with the engineers are incredibly detailed. He's always asking the right questions.
And that is So crucial for the 2026 era. You cannot just be a brave driver who stomps on the throttle anymore. You have to practically be an engineer in the cockpit. You have to deeply understand how the energy deployment works.
Which brings me to one of my favorite nuggets from the Reddit deep dive. I think this is the absolute smoking gun for how smart this kid is.
Oh, the paddock sighting?
Yeah. Yes. The fans spotted him somewhere very unexpected recently.
The Formula E paddock.
Formula E, the all-electric racing series. Now, traditionally, F1 purists and F1 drivers look down their noses at Formula E. They call it glorified Mario Kart.
Yeah.
So why on earth was Arvid Lindblad hanging around the Formula E garages?
Because it is pure strategic brilliance. As we just mentioned, the 2026 F1 cars rely heavily on electrical power. If you drain your battery too early on a straight, you are a sitting duck. You literally lose hundreds of horsepower in an instant.
You just hit a brick wall of drag.
Exactly. Now, Formula E drivers have been mastering the dark art of electrical energy management for over a decade. They know exactly how to lift and coast, how to regenerate energy under braking with maximum efficiency, how to game the battery systems.
So he wasn't over there looking for a backup job in case F1 didn't work out.
Not at all. He was there to steal their homework.
He was. The reports say he was in the garages asking highly technical questions about energy management strategies. He's actively looking for an edge.
While the other F1 rookies are probably just doing reaction time training with tennis balls, Lindblad is studying advanced electrical engineering concepts.
It's so savvy.
It suggests he understands that in 2026 it is the smartest driver who wins the midfield battles, not just the bravest one.
It gives me a massive amount of hope for his season. But we do have to talk about the rest of the grid. Because Racing Bulls is a midfield team. They finished 6th in the Constructors' Championship last year.
A very solid result for them.
But what are the whispers about the pecking order this year? Because the midfield looks volatile.
The whispers are loud, and they are incredibly chaotic. The BBC Gossip column notes that Honda is, quote, unhappy with its own F1 performance right now.
That is a massive red alert. Honda is supplying the engines for Aston Martin this year, and they are technically still partners with Red Bull through the Red Bull powertrain setup.
Right. And if the Honda tech is struggling?
It implies their new engine might be down on raw power, or worse, down on electrical efficiency.
Which is the death knell for 2026. If you are lacking efficiency, you are going backwards on Sunday. And then you pair that with the direct headlines about Aston Martin. The articles are literally asking, why has it gone so wrong for Aston Martin?
It sounds like an absolute crisis over there.
It really does. And if Aston Martin drops the ball and falls backwards, that opens a huge vacuum in the midfield.
So Racing Bulls, who finished 6th, could suddenly find themselves fighting for 5th.
Or even higher. If the top teams, say Ferrari or McLaren, have reliability issues with these brand new engines, which is highly likely.
There could be podiums on the table.
Exactly. Lindblad might find himself in a position to score very big points early in the season simply by keeping his nose clean and finishing the race.
But that requires him to actually keep his nose clean, and he's a rookie. He's going to make mistakes.
Well, he already has.
True.
The fans on Reddit were absolutely loving the clip of his spin during testing. Arvid Lindblad's spin earlier today was trending for hours.
But the vibe in the comments wasn't nasty, was it? It felt more like affectionate mockery.
It was very much one of us energy. Look, spinning is just part of finding the limit of a new car. If you aren't spinning in preseason testing, you simply aren't trying hard enough.
The fans seem to be cutting him a lot of slack because of his age and his engaging personality.
For now, the real test comes when the points are on the line.
Which brings us back to the mental game. We discussed his family's incredible resilience, but the Red Bull family is a very specific kind of beast.
The meat grinder.
Exactly. We have seen them destroy the confidence of so many talented drivers. Pierre Gasly, Alex Albon, Daniel Kvyat, they all got chewed up and spat out by the Red Bull machine. Lindblad is walking willingly into that slaughterhouse.
It is arguably the most ruthless environment in modern sports. Dr. Marko and Christian Horner do not have the patience for failure.
But when the BBC asked him directly about the pressure of the Red Bull seat, Lindblad just sort of shrugged it off. He said, I wouldn't really say pressure. This is what I've worked towards my whole life.
You know, I really oscillated on that quote when I read it.
How so?
At first, I thought, oh, you sweet summer child, you have absolutely no idea what is coming for you.
Right. Pure naivety.
Exactly. But then I reconsidered his timeline. He has been in the Red Bull program since he was 13 years old. He has literally grown up with Helmut Marko breathing down his neck after every single karting race.
So to him, extreme high pressure is just Tuesday.
Exactly. He might be entirely inoculated against it at this point. He seems to exist in this flow state where the external pressure is just background white noise.
It's like he has completely normalized the abnormal.
Precisely. And he frames his goals beautifully in the interview. He says he is just focused on trying to extract the most out of the package.
That's a very clinical, mature way to view it.
It is. He isn't driving to please Helmut Marko. He is driving to solve the engineering puzzle of the car. That protects his ego.
So let's look ahead to the actual season. The first race is Melbourne, Australia, March.
Not long now.
What actually constitutes a good season for Arvid Lindblad? Because let's be realistic, he isn't going to win the world championship in a racing Bulls car.
No, barring an absolute miracle of engineering, no. The primary goal for Racing Bulls as an organization is to defend that 6th place in the Constructors' Championship.
Because that is where the prize money is.
Exactly. But for Arvid personally, his very first goal, his absolute directive, is to beat his teammate. That is the golden rule of Formula One. Your teammate is in the exact same machinery.
So whoever is in that other garage, whether it's Yuki Tsunoda with his experience or Liam Lawson, the benchmark is going to be incredibly high.
Very high. Arvid needs to be close immediately. He doesn't necessarily need to beat his teammate every single race, but he needs to be within a 10th or 2 in qualifying pace. He cannot afford to be half a second off.
And crucially, he needs to not cost the team millions of pounds in crash damage.
That is vital. Rookies are notoriously expensive. If he bins the car into the wall every other weekend trying to find the limit, Marko's patience will evaporate very quickly, regardless of how strong his grandmother's work ethic is.
And what about the Lando Norris arc? Because I feel like the broadcasters are going to be tracking that storyline all season long.
Oh, the 5-year promise is the absolute narrative hook of the year for the media.
Can he actually challenge Lando on track? Because McLaren should theoretically be fighting at the very front, while Racing Bulls is solidly midfield.
On paper, in a normal dry race, Lando should probably lap him, but this is Formula One.
Anything can happen.
Exactly. What if it rains? What if there is a late safety car restart with 5 laps to go and the grid gets completely scrambled?
Oh, that is the absolute dream scenario. Lindblad sitting right behind Norris on fresh, soft tires.
If that happens, we are going to find out very quickly if that Zoomer confidence holds up against a seasoned veteran's racecraft.
Do you think he'd go for a move?
I think Arvid would send it down the inside without a moment's hesitation. I really do. He has that fundamental lack of fear we talked about.
It is going to be absolutely electric to watch.
I can't wait.
So let's wrap this up. We have unpacked a tremendous amount here today. We have the profile of an 18-year-old prodigy who has been aggressively fast-tracked by the most ruthless academy in world motorsport.
We have the rare combination of his heritage, British, Swedish, and Indian, which is deeply rooted in a story of profound survival and rebuilding that seems to genuinely fuel his internal work ethic.
We have the technical landscape of 2026, a brand new era of F1, where his adaptability as a rookie and his cheeky Formula E homework might actually give him a surprising edge over the grid veterans.
And, of course, we have the personality. The broccoli hair kid who isn't afraid to look an established F1 superstar right in the eye and tell him, I'm coming for you.
It is a hell of a recipe for a debut season. But I want to leave you, the listener, with one final provocative thought to mull over before the lights finally go out in Melbourne.
Go on.
We are entirely obsessed with the number 18, the youngest ever British driver. We treat it like a massive badge of honor. But is it actually too young? Are we putting way too much expectation on shoulders that are, biologically speaking, still growing?
It is a very valid ethical question. The physical G-forces alone are punishing on the neck and spine, let alone the intense mental strain of facing global media scrutiny every weekend.
But then I think back to his grandparents. At just 5 years old, they were surviving the violent partition of an entire subcontinent. They were rebuilding their entire lives from literal dust. When you come from a lineage that has survived that level of trauma and hardship, maybe the pressure of driving a very fast car in circles isn't actually pressure at all. Maybe, for Arvid Lindblad, navigating the F1 paddock is simply the easy part.
Resilience is a fascinating thing. It can skip a generation, or it can be powerfully amplified. I have a strong feeling that when that visor goes down on the grid in Melbourne, we are going to see exactly how much of that family history he has carried with him into the cockpit.
I think you are absolutely spot on. Listeners, enjoy the race in Australia. Keep a very close eye on the kid in the Racing Bulls garage. He might just surprise us all.
It is going to be a brilliant year.
See you in the next deep dive.